This is the Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, Bo Cook from Loan Market, BTZD, the official apparel partner of the Paracave Podcast, and the Parramatta Times, the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. Troy Warner here, and this is week 2 of the NRL Finals. It's semi-finals. Just 2 games on the weekend, Friday and Saturday. The Melbourne Storm host the Sydney Roosters down there at Amy Park in Melbourne, and the Warriors take on the Newcastle Knights over there in New Zealand. It is also round number 9 of the Telstra Women's Premiership as well, and there is a top 4 in that competition, and there is one game especially in this round that is going to be crucial to the end of the top 4. So let's kick it off with the Women's Premiership, and as I said, it is round number 9. And the first game is on Thursday night, 7:45pm at Campbelltown Stadium out there in Sydney, out in the Golden West. And it is the West Tigers taking on the Newcastle Knights, the high-flying Knights, who are first on the ladder, defending premiers, looking to go back-to-back in this premiership. And the new team, the West Tigers, who are currently in 8th position now. This is going to be a big game for Newcastle. They just want to keep on their roll going in this season, as they are, as I said, number 1 at the moment. They had a great win over the Roosters last week, and they've got that 2-point buffer there. So if they can get this win, they will get the minor premiership and look like going back-to-back in the women's competition. For the Tigers, their first up year, they've had 2 wins in the year, and they will be playing for a little bit of pride. It's always tough, a new team coming into a competition, especially the women's competition. So, look, they've played some great games. They started off really well in this competition with a good win over the Parramatta Eels in round 1 and a few competitive games here and there. So, look, they'll be disappointed with their season, but they'll be looking towards next year and what they can do to climb up higher on that ladder. Look, I think this game out at Campbelltown, I think it'll be Newcastle. I think they will carry on their winning ways, unfortunately for the Tigers, and the Newcastle Knights will get the win in this one. Now, Saturday, the next game is on Saturday, 6pm at Netstrata Jubilee Stadium, and it is a double header at Jubilee Stadium, and this first game is on at 6pm on Saturday. Now, the Warriors and Knights in the NRL is on at 4:05pm, obviously 6:05pm New Zealand time, so it's like a super Saturday for rugby league. We've got the Warriors and the Knights in the NRL, and then a double header of women's football as well, so prime time there. So that first game of that double header at Netstrata Jubilee Stadium sees the Roosters take on the Cowboys. The Roosters in 2nd position, the Cowboys in 9th. Major outsiders in this game. I don't think they'll get the win in this one. The Roosters, they'll want to try and bounce back after losing last week to the Newcastle Knights. They come in 2nd at the moment. They want to hold on to 2nd spot in this competition and just get a bit more confidence and going into the finals, which will start next week. So, look, the Cowboys, they've had a good year first up in this competition. they've had a couple of wins this year. One of their best was against I think Newcastle Knights, and then also the West Tigers as well. So, especially that win over the Knights was great for them. So again, they will learn from this year and try and do a little bit better next year. Always tough, as I said, in the first year of a competition. But the Roosters, for mine, in that one, the second game of the doubleheader sees the Dragons take on the Broncos. The Jamie Soward coached Dragons are sitting in 6th position at the moment. The Broncos, they're in 4th position, but they're on equal points as the Raiders, who are in 5th position. So a very crucial game here for the Broncos. The Dragons, they'll want to go out in style at home and get the win. And look, I think it's going to be a good game here. I think Tegan Berry at fullback for the Dragons has been outstanding. Scored 4 tries in a game earlier on in this season. So she is one to watch, definitely. Obviously, Racine McGregor at halfback as well, captain. Look, they've been there and thereabouts this season, the Dragons. They had a close loss last week, 16-8 to the Sharks. They absolutely smashed the Cowboys 48-16. A 1-point loss to the Titans, a win over the Tigers, and then a 1-point loss to the Raiders. So the Broncos, on the other hand, well, they've 3 in a row for them at the moment. They beat the West Tigers, the Sharks, and the Raiders. So 3 in a row for them, looking for 4 in a row. But the Dragons, they could pull an upset here. The last time these two teams met was last season. The Dragons got a 1-point win over the Broncos, 19 points to 18. So, and the first game in the first competition of last year was the Broncos 22-18. So, very close games between these two clubs. Look, I think the Broncos, they've got a lot to play for. I think they'll get the win in this one. The Dragons, they won't go down fighting though. They'll go down fighting, but I think the Broncos will get that one. Sunday sees a doubleheader in Canberra at GIO Stadium. The first game of the day sees the 10th place Eels take on the 7th place Sharks. No bearing on the finals here. Tough season for both clubs, especially the Parramatta Eels, who made the grand final last year. A disappointing year. They never really got out of the blocks, unfortunately, and a suspension and injuries, and they just couldn't crack it this season. So a poor start. They got a good win over the Cowboys, 16 points to 12, but other than that, they haven't had much to cheer about. Rachel Pearson, co-captain, was injured for the first few games. Elsie Albert as well was injured for the first few games, and then re-injured in her comeback as well. So 2 star signings there. Unfortunately, haven't played much football this year. So that's been a little bit of a down point for the Parramatta Eels. The Sharks, on the other hand, another new club in the competition, had a close win over the Dragons, 16 points to 8 last week, but then have struggled against the bigger teams, the Broncos and the Knights. They beat another new team, the Cowboys, and lost to the Roosters. So another soul-searching off-season for the Sharks in the NRLW. To see how they can improve on next year. The last game of the round, the NRLW round, sees the Raiders at GIO Stadium in Canberra take on the Titans in 3rd spot. Now, this is a really crucial game for both clubs. So, at the moment, as we can see on the ladder, the Raiders are on 10 points with a differential of -9, and the Titans are on 12 points with a differential of +14. So 23 points difference there. It's going to be a really close. It's going to be a hard game for both sides. The Titans, they have been playing some reasonably good football this year, and they've had a few hiccups here and there, but they've shown glimpses of what they can do. But the Raiders as well. I think the Raiders have been one of the sort of surprise packets of the competition at the moment. And obviously the best of the new teams in the competition. So they've had 5 wins this year. So they've been playing some great footy this year. So Mama Taufa down there for the Raiders, a legend of NRLW, formerly of the Parramatta Eels. Zahara Tamara, captain as well, scored. He's now the highest point scorer in NRLW history as well. So some great stats there. And look, this is going to be a cracker of a game. As I said, down in Canberra, the Raiders with their home crowd. Let's hope that the Raiders can get a massive home crowd to cheer these women on and get the win against the Titans. And hopefully the Raiders can put a score on them, and look, they might just sneak into the top 4 there for the NRLW and play finals in their first year, which would be a massive achievement as well. So if the Dragons can upset the Broncos and the Raiders can get the win over the Titans, then the Broncos will drop out of the 4. So there's a couple of big games there. Obviously, the Broncos will want to win, but the Raiders as well, they'll want to win as well. They will know their fate going into their game on Sunday. So hopefully they can get the win if they want to play finals football in their first year in a competition, which would be great to see. Look, let's turn our attention now to the NRL, and it is finals week number 2, and it is semi-finals. We're down to 6 sides left in the competition. The Penrith Panthers and the Brisbane Broncos are through to the preliminary finals next weekend, so they get a week off. The Cronulla Sharks and the Canberra Raiders are eliminated out of the competition. So these 4 teams are left to battle it out this weekend to see who plays the Panthers and the Broncos in the prelim final. Now, the first game is on Friday, 7:50pm. The Storm and the Roosters, 2 traditional rivals. 3rd versus 7th in the regular competition. The Storm, they had a loss to the Broncos last week, pretty comprehensively, 26-0 up there at Suncorp Stadium. They're back down at Amy Park this weekend. The Roosters, they had a 1-point win over the Cronulla Sharks at PointsBet Stadium in what was a massive game for the Roosters. They lost a couple of players, Joseph Swali and Joey Manu as well. They're not playing this week. They lost them during the game, so we're down 15 men. James Tedesco got sin bin, and then also charged down a Nico Hines field goal attempt, I think it was, and also Luke Keary charged down a field goal attempt from the Sharks as well. So they got away with the win by 1 point, and they take on the Melbourne Storm this week. So, look, the Storm, unfortunately, that tragic injury to Ryan Pappenhausen last week there up in Brisbane, he's going to be out for some time. Hopefully he'll be back for round 1 in 2024. It was such a tragedy to see Ryan go down in so much pain. And with an ankle injury. At first, a lot of people thought it was a compound fracture. Fortunately, it wasn't, so that was pretty pleasing, but a major injury to Ryan Pappenhausen again. So he is out. Xavier Coates as well suffered a ankle injury as well. And young Tanamapia is out as well. So a few changes. Justin Olam comes back into the centre position, former Dally M Centre of the Year. He comes back with Remus Smith on the wing for the Melbourne Storm. And look, the Melbourne Storm, they don't lose too many games, 2 games in a row too often. they'll be back. They probably would have copped a spray from Craig Bellamy, no doubt. After that game, you could see him up in the box in the Brisbane game giving a spray. It was a classic scene there where he was yelling, and so no doubt training would have been really hard this weekend. But the Melbourne Storm, as I said, they don't lose 2 games in a row too often. They're back at home in front of their home fans. It should be a sellout crowd down there. About 30,000, I think they can hold there at Amy Park against the injury-riddled Roosters. So, as I said, Joey Manu, Joseph Suaalii is out, and also Billy Smith as well, fractured jaw. So apparently played 38 minutes or so with this fractured jaw, so a courageous effort there. But unfortunately, he is out now. Been playing some great footy over the last few weeks with the Roosters winning their games to get into the top 8, and even last weekend as well, unfortunately. So that sees a relatively inexperienced centre line and winger combinations as well. So Paul Momorowski comes into the centre position, Corey Allen as well. Jackson Polo comes onto the wing. So, look, it's a very sort of inexperienced backline for the Roosters. They still have their 1, 6, 7 and 9 intact, so pretty reasonable there with Tedesco, Keary, Walker and Brandon Smith, who is taking on his former club at his former home ground. So that should be quite interesting. Apparently he's going to put on a show and show why he became a Rooster. So that should be interesting as well. And Lindsay Collins, he's been playing some outstanding footy this year, both for Queensland and for the Roosters as well. There was a chase last week against the Sharks where he just came from the other side of the field and ended up running down the back. So he's been playing some great footy this year. They've still got Nat Butcher, Victor Radley, a bit of experience there in the back row for the Roosters. This is the sort of game that Victor Radley would love to play in because it's do or die. We love to see his big tackles and we love to see him getting fired up. As long as he doesn't cross the line, we love to see the games that he plays like this. And Sam Walker at halfback as well. Copped a fine for a high tackle last week and a little bit of a bump on his knee, but he should be right to go. He's just been really good the last 3 weeks for the Roosters ever since coming back from New South Wales Cup and injury. So he is crucial to their victory chances. James Tedesco as well, he had a great game last week despite being sin bin for what was probably a silly mistake on James's part, but his experience will be worthwhile in a big game like this as well. But I think the Melbourne Storm, I think they go into the game as favourites, and that is probably right. Now, the winner of this game takes on the Penrith Panthers at a venue to be announced, and which will be another big clash. So it's do or die for these both sides. I think the Roosters' great run of late will come to an end, and I think the Melbourne Storm will get the win in this one. The second game of the weekend sees probably two sides that a lot of fans of clubs that aren't in the top 8 are probably cheering for, who are actually playing each other. So the Warriors, who had the loss to the Panthers last week, and the Newcastle Knights, who defeated the Canberra Raiders in extra time, 30 points to 28, take on each other at Go Media Stadium in Auckland. It's a sellout. It's already sold out, so it's another blackout, what they call over there, which will be great to see. So, look, this is going to be a cracker. The New Zealand Warriors, basically the same side as last week, although the big in for them is Sean Johnson. Now, look, there's a lot of reports about Sean Johnson. Will he play? Will he not play? He is under an injury cloud for a calf injury, so he was going to play if it was a grand final last week against the Panthers, but considering they had one more crack at the cherry, they rested Sean, so they're going to give him every day up until Friday, I think it is, to prove his fitness and take his spot in this side. But look, I think even if he can get on the field, not 100%, if he can guide this side around, much like what Cooper Cronk did in the grand final when he was injured, but just guide this side around at home, the New Zealand Warriors will go a long way to winning this game. For the Newcastle Knights, the big out for them is Jackson Hastings. He has come to that ankle injury, I think it is, that resurfaced again last week. Adam Clune comes back into his position there at halfback, but I think Adam's been playing some good footy whilst he's been in the team, whilst Jackson has been out. Has certainly devised a good combination with Tyson Gamble, and I think he has played some good footy. So I don't think Jackson is a great player, and obviously the number one halfback at Newcastle, although in the last couple of weeks I don't think they have missed much with Adam Clune being there. He's not a superstar halfback. He's just going to go over to New Zealand to try and do his job, get the win. That's about it. He doesn't want the headlines. He doesn't want the back pages. He just wants the win. So, look, I think that's a good in for them. And, look, this is going to be a really good game. This could be a toss of the coin game, to be honest. I mean, the Knights, they've won 10 in a row. Can they go 11 in a row? That's a big ask in the NRL, to go 11 games in a row, and especially now that it's in finals. The Warriors haven't made finals in a while. This is their second one in their first home final in a while. This is going to be a great game. If this doesn't get ratings bonanzas, then I don't know what's doing here. But look, I'm going to tip the Warriors in this game. I think they'll get the win. It's at home, in front of a massive home crowd. I think the Knights' run will just come to an end, unfortunately. They have been playing some great footy. The winner of this game takes on the Brisbane Broncos at Suncorp Stadium in a prelim final, so that will certainly be interesting as well. But this game, I think the New Zealand Warriors will get the win in this game over the Newcastle Knights, which will unfortunately see their season end. And what a season it has been. I think they will say that it has been a successful season, although they will be disappointed personally if they do lose this game. So 10 in a row is a great achievement in the NRL. So look, they can't be disappointed with that. A few months ago, they were saying that the coach is going to be sacked, but he's hung around. They've got the wins. He's hung around. And the Warriors, well, that's a fairy tale story, isn't it? They've played some really good football this year. They've earned a second bite at the cherry. They're finishing the top four. I think they will get the win and will take on the Brisbane Broncos in a prelim final. So my tips there in the NRL Finals Week 2 semi-finals sees the Storm over the Roosters and the Warriors over the Knights. So they're both the home teams there. And just recapping quickly the NRLW, my tips for this week will be the Newcastle Knights, the Roosters, the Broncos. Look, I'm going to tip the Eels in this one to finish off the season on a high, and the Raiders to get a win here and possibly get a top 4 spot and play finals in their first year. Look, happy football weekend to you if your team is playing. I know it's pretty stressful this time of year, especially in elimination finals if your team is playing, but good luck. And for all you other footy fans, look, switch it on, have a look, enjoy the footy. There's there's not that many games left, so why not watch it, enjoy it, and have a good weekend. Enjoy your footy.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.